My name is Megan Wooten, and on behalf of myself and Deborah Harrell, the Quilt Show Coordinator, I'm excited for you to come along with me and Deborah today on a virtual tour of the beautiful quilts that we have on display at the 71st Annual Cherokee National Holiday Quilt Show, located in the Chota Conference Center in beautiful Tahlequah, Oklahoma. As we gather to admire the intricate tapestries of fabric, color, and stories, I want to take a moment to express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to those who have made this event possible. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. and Deputy Principal Chief Brian Warner, as well as First Lady January Hoskin, First Daughter Jazzy Hoskin, and Mako Warner. It's important to recognize the sacrifices they make to serve the Cherokee Nation and citizens. The early mornings and late nights, the difficult decisions, and endless hours of strategic planning to ensure that the Cherokee Nation prospers for generations to come. Chief Hoskin and Deputy Chief Warner are a vital role in weaving into the fabric of our Cherokee society, advocating daily for the needs of Cherokee citizens at local, state, and federal government levels. Wado Chief Hoskin and Deputy Chief Warner. We would like to recognize Cherokee National Holiday Treasurer Dan Mink for designing the artwork for the Cherokee National Holiday theme, Building Our Nation. A special thank you goes out to Michael Hamlin for the logistic planning and Colin Mays here at the Chota Conference Center for the wonderful space and excellent hospitality. We also want to thank Ryan Krager of A Bloom Forest here in Tahlequah for the plants, as well as Ivy Threads in Salisaw for their donation. We greatly appreciate all of the door prizes that have been donated. These are beautiful works of art done by local Cherokee artists. We hope that you enjoy the quilt show and may the creativity on display resonate with the creativity that lives in each of us. Now, Taylor is here and he's going to give us a welcome in Cherokee.
Sio nagad adui dawadom deji deja danila ga jalagihi ayethli udetiska diegath ganagesa nidana neha see ijalia league nagaa ijilucha ahani igali goha jingalstaniga aleyig inha galeha Ijaktostai Kohino Udetia Sadisa Ugod Diegath Duni no Slai Galita Skoichku Hisk Yigai Diegath. Hello everyone, my name is Taylor Armbruster. I've been working with the Quilt Show for the last few years and with Deb, our coordinator. And she was kind enough to ask me to say a few words in Cherokee for this year's show. I just wanted to welcome everyone to this year's show and that we appreciate everyone for being here with us today, as well as those that will come through and those that are tuning in with us online, wherever you may be. Skiwu, Widow, and now to Deb.
Hi, now I'm going to show you our themed entry. It also won first place in the wall hanging themed entry category. It was made by Janet Foreman Green from North Carolina, and it's all the way from here, and she actually had Dan Meek, the designer of the theme this year, came and he actually judged all of these, and this was his choice. And you can actually see the barcode down on the bottom. It actually works. You can take a picture of it with your camera, and when it pops up, it will take you directly to the holiday website. And so it is so beautiful, and all of the pictures on here are actually places that have been built by the nation and by the Housing Authority, which is where I work, and I love the Housing Authority, and I know all of you do as well. So she also won first place, so now I think we're going to turn it over to Megan, and she's going to let you know who the Chief's Choice is. Megan?
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. I'm here with the Principal Chief's Choice. This quilt is called Talking Leaves. This quilt is made by Melissa Watts. She also pieced, and she's the owner of the quilt. And we like to ask our quilters to include a story about the quilt so we'll know a little background about it. And Melissa's story is this is Sequoia's original syllabary. This is for her Cherokee Master Apprentice Program graduation project, and she made it in honor of her grandmother and Sequoia. So the chief did a great job, and I can see definitely why he picked this quilt. You can see the intricate detail that each leaf is hand stitched, and then it's got the syllabary, each letter on the quilt. And the quilt is very large. I don't know if you can see that for our viewers online, but it is quite an amazing quilt. Now we're going to go on over to the Deputy Chief's choice. And this quilt is Deputy Chief's choice. This quilt is machine pieced and hand quilted. The owner pieced and quilted by Genevieve Russell. She calls this quilt postage stamp. And if you can see, this quilt is made up of several different pieces of material, and each piece of the material that's made up is basically about the size of a postage stamp. And her story on this quilt says that I watched my mom make this quilt pattern all my growing up years, but she didn't put the border on her quilts. And she said this is the second one she's made. So when Deputy Chief saw this, knowing that it was hand quilted, and like I said, knowing that each piece is about the size of a postage stamp, I can only imagine how many pieces and how long this took, but this is absolutely a beautiful quilt. And now we're going to go on over to Mako Warner's choice. And this year, Mako selected a baby quilt. And this baby quilt is titled Tabitha's Angel. And this quilt was pieced and quilted by Avis Chota. So it's all one piece of material and it's all one color. And if you see, it's somewhat of a Precious Moments angel on this baby quilt. And then there's a very small halo above the baby, I'm sure giving homage to the title Tabitha's Angel. And the background on the quilt is Tabitha's Angel. There is someone in Miss Avis Chota's church named Tabitha that is going to receive this blanket and just had a new baby, and that new baby's name is Sophia. So now we're going to go ahead and start on our quilts here at the quilt show. If you'll come along with me, we'll come back here to the machine pieced, hand quilted, and we'll start back here in the corner. It is Friday, we're open today, so we have lots of people here. We hope that you can come and join us. This quilt is called Crown of Thorns. The owner is Genevieve Russell. It was also pieced and quilted by her. In her story, she said she tried to copy an old quilt that her dad had bought at a sale. And so we had someone earlier asking our quilt show coordinator how many hours went into this, and Deborah said she estimated about 6 to 12 months. She didn't have any idea how many hours. And if you see, this quilt actually got third place in the machine pieced, hand quilted. And now I'm going to come on over to Labyrinth, and this is owned, pieced, and quilted by Miss Pat Taylor. This quilt here received first place, again in the machine pieced, hand quilted, and as you can see, all the intricate details, all of the little loops and swirls, and all of that is done by hand individually, like I said, by Mrs. Pat Taylor. So this one's obviously a pick for first place. Now we're going to go to Moon Glove, and Moon Glove is still in the machine pieced, hand quilted category, and this one is also by Genevieve Russell, and this one is more of a star theme. She didn't really have a story that went with it, but I think that the colors and the coordination and how everything lays out, this was definitely a pick for a lot of people that have walked through, and they've mentioned that it's their favorite. We will be having a viewer's choice pick. We hope that everybody can come down and see us at the Cherokee National Holiday. That way they can vote for their viewer's choice, and we can try to get that one won. This one is called Christmas Trees, and it's an homage to Christmas time. I know that this one, our quilt show coordinator had mentioned that this is a favorite of hers. Again, machine pieced, hand quilted. You can see the different Christmas trees on it, and then the blocks that are solid has a Christmas tree quilted on it. So this one received second place in the machine pieced and hand quilted category. Now we're going to go on over to quilt number 405. This one is titled Window to the National Parks. It is machine pieced and hand quilted. This quilt story is the quilt was made for her father, and he's visited many of these parks, and she said, how many have you visited? So this is machine pieced and hand quilted. It's actually pieced and quilted by Michelle Newton, and she lists the owner as Mitch Parnell. So I was looking on here for Oklahoma. I did not find Oklahoma. I did find Hot Springs, Arkansas. but that's the only one that I found, and I didn't find any national parks that I have visited, so I'm going to have to get that on my to-do list. We'll come on over here to the baby quilt section. Right here at the baby quilt section, we've got entry number 1209 for Summer Bear. This is also owned, stitched, and quilted by Michelle Newton. That's the one who just made the National Parks quilt. This bright fabric reminded her of a bright sunny day, and when she saw the bear pattern, she knew it would make a perfect quilt. If I know Michelle, she's probably got a special baby in mind for this to go to. And when you see it, you've got the two little ears, the teddy bear head, the arms, the legs. It's just an adorable little teddy bear quilt. This next quilt is quilt entry 1208. It is also a baby quilt, and it's titled Crown Quilt. The owner and pieced and quilted by Michelle Newton, the same as the teddy bear, and she said this pattern reminded her a lot of Miss Cherokee's crown. So this one has the purple, very regal color. Each individual square inside has the word Cherokee in Cherokee, so I think this would be suitable for any kind of royalty. We've got quilt number 1207, which is Sunflower Wishes. This is also a baby quilt. This quilt is owned, stitched by Lee Workman. It is quilted by Nancy Ellis. The story on this quilt, it was made with 100% cotton fabrics. She worked late into the night on this one, sewing into it all her wishes and dreams. So this is very summertime. The colors go great together. There are two different shades of yellow. One's patterned, one's solid, same as the brown. It's got a pattern, then it's got a solid in the middle, and this is just quite an amazing quilt. We're going to go on over here to entry 1206, Pastel Bargello. It is also a baby quilt. This is owned by Lee Workman. It was pieced by Lee, and it was quilted by Nancy Ellis. On this quilt, it is print fabrics. This is one of the few quilts that is available to purchase at our quilt show. Deborah, our quilt show coordinator, is always very good to put that on the story. That way people can see this is available to purchase, and it gives her contact information on the story. So if you're visiting us in person, you can come down here and take a picture of that and possibly make this yours to take home. Entry number 1205 is called Half Square Blast. It is also a baby quilt owned by Lee Workman, stitched by Lee Workman, and quilted by Nancy Ellis. She said that she had a stash of 5-inch squares, pulled them out, played around with a little bit, and this was the result. So I don't think she could have asked for any better. I love how it's sort of an ombre, and then all of the corners are just exact. She did this spot on. This quilt is also available for purchase, so if you do visit the quilt show, you can come down, take a picture of this story, and then you can contact Mrs. Workman and possibly make this one yours. The next quilt we're going to go to is entry number 1204. It is called Daisy May. It is owned by Janet Stone. It was also quilted and pieced by Janet Stone, and as you can see, this entry did win second place for the baby quilt category. So this one is just very summertime, reminds me a little bit of strawberries, would be very good for any little girl. It's got a little bit of a frayed edge. This quilt is just super adorable. All right, we're going to go to entry number 1202. This is Southwest Trip. This is a baby quilt. It's owned and pieced by Nancy Turtle. It was quilted by Ina Crittenden, and Mrs. Turtle has blessed us with several quilts this year. And this one, I love all the native patterns that it's got, and the way that she was able to just blend the patterns and make it pop with this diamond right here in the middle. It's got feathers, a couple of different feather materials. It's got arrows in here. This is just very lovely. Love the border at the top and the bottom. The turquoise really makes this pop. And I don't know if you can see on the material, the border even has pattern. So this quilt is very impressive, and we thank Miss Turtle for sharing that with us. Now we're going to go on to quilt entry number 1201. This is called Nana Love. This is Susan Shibley. This quilt is cross-stitched, embroidered. It's quilted, made with the idea of a first great-grandchild, and the race among grandchildren is on. So this one having all the cross-stitching, I think it's really amazing. It's got a couple of butterflies on here. The birds are almost lifelike. Hummingbird, the flowers. This quilt here is just spot on. All right, so entry level 1607. I think you could guess the name of this quilt, it is 4th of July. So this one, anything that's summer of summer, you're going to find on this quilt. You've got watermelon, you've got fireworks, you've got sunflowers. I love right here on the jars, there's a jar in each corner. The jar and the lemonade pitcher both have plastic over them, looking like they're actual real jars. This is a 3-dimensional quilt. Some of the cherries are made with 3 dimensions. It's got a 3-dimension sunflower. It's got a Coca-Cola bottle. This one is owned by Jennifer Yancey. It was pieced and quilted by Dana Kirkland. She said her husband served in the Air Force for 23 years. She made it for him initially. Unfortunately, he passed from COVID before it was completed, so she gave it to her oldest daughter in remembrance of him. Beautiful story, beautiful quilt. This small quilt is called Choices. It is a wall hanging. We had a little contest with our volunteers here that help us to set it up. It's owned, pieced, and quilted by Jean Eden, and she said when we got here, the quilt show coordinator asked us if we could guess what it was about. So this was actually inspired by the riverboat brawl in Alabama. It's a white chair appliqued on blue and gold background. If you remember the story or watching it on the news, they did hit someone with the white chair. So she said it's, to help us all remember that we need to stay calm, cool, and collected. Thank you for that, Jean. We're going to go on to quilt entry 547, which is climate change. This is machine pieced and machine quilted, owned, pieced, and quilted by Jean Eden. She used a single piece of fabric to create a pseudo bargello. It is rainbow colored with a black patterned back. So this one is almost a tie-dye appeal. I know the young kids that come in with their parents, they love this, obviously because of the rainbow and the tie-dye. Great job, Jean. We're going to go to quilt entry number 1605, Dear Georgia. And Karen owns this quilt and won 2nd place. She said her inspiration was her mother, Georgia. Georgia loved to sew and quilt, and Georgia made Karen's clothes as a child and made quilts for her entire family. She's trying to carry on Dear Georgia's legacy by sewing and quilting, and she inherited most everything used in this wall hanging from her mother. So that was a great way to pay homage. And the border is just a very busy border. It's somewhat of a sewing tribute. It's got buttons, it's got thread, it's got needle, it's got a measuring tape down here. So I think it's just an adorable quilt, and knowing that it came from her mother just makes it that much more special. All right, and our wall hanging for entry 1604 is Orange Lightning. It is a wall hanging that's owned, pieced, and quilted by Deborah Ebke. This quilt was made from scraps from a granddaughter's baby quilt. So this wall hanging, that way it can be on display even when the granddaughter gets older, maybe for her teenage bedroom. That way she can remember the scraps that her grandmother used left over from that baby quilt to make her something to remember that grandma's always thinking of you. All right, and this wall hanging is our 1st place winner in the wall hanging category for Modern Christmas Tree. It is owned by Debbie Ebke. It was pieced and quilted by Debbie Ebke, and this is an original design. So Debbie did this herself. I know when they were judging, I heard a couple of the judges mention that these lines are straight, spot on. So you can see a little bit in the material. There's a little bit of a glitter to it. So again, I'm trying to get people to come down to the quilt show in person. If you think you like what you see online, you'll definitely love it in person. Entry 1602 is titled Daughters and Granddaughters. This is a wall hanging that's owned by Deborah Upke. It's also pieced and quilted by Deborah. And if you can see on this one, it has a little bit of a netting overlay, but you can kind of see each line, and I can only imagine how long and how many hours she spent at the sewing machine sewing all those lines. And it looks like the girl's hair's blown back. Now, I do love the story on this one. She said the quilt reminds her of her 3 daughters and 2 granddaughters. They're all strong, independent females no matter what age. That's just really cute. All right, entry 1601 is our proud 3rd place winner. It's called Crown of Thorns, and it's a wall hanging. It's owned by Jean Olson. It's also pieced and quilted by Jean. This one is very bright colors, and it looks like a stained glass window in a church to me. The back turquoise really makes it pop. Jean, you did a great job on that. Entry 1701 is for purse and clothing. This is a quilted skirt, t-shirt, and long tunic. So this is actually 3-piece. The skirt looks exactly like a quilt that Grandma would have on her bed. And like I said, it's got a little bit of an homage to the ribbon on the shirt. Mary Wiles is the proud owner of this quilt. She actually is the one who pieced and quilted it. She said she found an old quilt top in an Oklahoma antique shop. She wanted it and ironed it, and it looked good, but she didn't want to make it and sew squares into a quilt. So she decided to recycle the top into a skirt and tunic. She applied batting and quilted designs throughout. The skirt is actually reversible. The long tunic is quilted on the bodice and the pockets. 2 of the recycled hand-sewn squares are appliqued on the front and back of the t-shirt. So, Mary, I think you did a great job. I hope that somebody you know gets to enjoy this. This would definitely be a statement piece. All right, in second place in our miscellaneous quilted items, table runners, tree skirt, and electronic accessories is the black and red sunflower. It's pieced and quilted by Deborah Ebke, also owned by her. And she said this table runner is for a children's table. It's a replica of her 7-year-old granddaughter's drawing of a sunflower. So that would be something she could keep forever. And I like it how she's made it a little bit smaller, but like she said, it's for a children's table. And how proud would her granddaughter be to see that Grandma has made a quilt like my drawing. Entry 1804 is Nancy's Table Runner. This is owned by Nancy Turtle. It's also pieced and quilted by Nancy Turtle. This is a very vibrant, very bright, very earth tone table runner. And Nancy, you did a great job on it. Entry 1803 is titled Delectable Mountain. This received 3rd place in the miscellaneous quilted items category. It's owned by Bonnie Richmond, pieced by Bonnie and quilted by Bonnie. She says she loves the fall season and its colors. She wanted a tabletop for her kitchen table for fun, and she was really experimenting with the quilting. I like, Bonnie, how you did the zigzag pattern on this table runner. This would be something that, like you said, most people do love fall colors, and with the recent weather we've had, it certainly puts us in the spirit. Entry 1802 is Memories of Grandma. This is our first place winner for the miscellaneous quilted items. This is Janet Stone, and the title of it being Memories of Grandma, that's exactly what I think when I see it. I think about Grandma having her tea towel in one of the pockets. Grandma may be going out to the chicken coop, gathering eggs, bringing them back in the house. It's a very soft color, and I think Janet did great. All right, and our last entry for the miscellaneous quilted items is Turtle Playtime. This is by Nancy Turtle. You can see the turtle here with the shell. It's got a little bit of a frayed edging. And this would be fun for any kid or adult. I could see anybody having this laid across the couch or at the end of your bed. And like I said, it would really be a display item. All right, now we're going to go over here to the baby quilts. Native American baby quilt. This is by Barbara Mooney. The applique figures are bordered with rich brown sashing and backed with some rich brown. So this is very earth tone. This quilt is bound with contrasting print, perfect for a boy or girl. And I do like how Barbara has got on here the boys and the girls. They've got coordinating outfits. And like she said, this could be for boy or girl or somebody that had twins. All right, so entry 1211 is titled Pretty Girl. It's also a baby quilt. It is owned by Stacy Goodnight. Stacy pieced this herself, and it was quilted by Ina Crittenden. So where the other baby quilt had boy and girl both on it, these have separate boy and girl. So if you had niece and nephew that were by separate parents, this is a Pretty Girl quilt. Instead of 1212 being named Pretty Boy, she has named it Ornery. So this is owned by Stacy Goodnight. Stacy actually pieced and quilted this one herself. So she said she was just doing this for practice. And the quilt, you can see that he's got his bow and he's outside at night with the bright moon. And the moon is actually metallic. I really like that material up there. And the border on this one that Stacy's got almost gives it a braided look. It's kind of a zigzag, but then when you look at it, like I said, it almost looks like it's braided. I really like how she's got that optical illusion on there. Entry 1213 is called the 7 Clans. So here we have a 7-pointed star, each point representing one of the clans. This is owned and pieced by Sheila Fields, and it's also quilted by Sheila Fields. So Sheila, the bright red on the back is very rich. Love all the colors coordinating. You really nailed it on this one. This is called IVF Star 2. The reason that entry 1214 is called IVF Star 2, it's a baby quilt, and Rachel actually presented us with IVF Star 2 and IVF Star 1 right next to each other. So Rachel Howard is who owns these. These were also pieced and quilted by Rachel Howard. Each quilt here is coordinated lovely. They're both the same size, appears to be the same pattern, and Rachel just really did a good job on these. I hope that somebody gets blessed with those. All right, on entry level 1101, this is titled Stained Glass, which is very appropriately titled. As you can see, it looks like a stained glass window. The owner of this quilt is Jean Olson. It is pieced and quilted by Jean Olson. She said she's fallen in love with stained glass. She took a pattern and changed it up to make this. So Jean has done this on her own. It did not have a pattern, and as you can see, I think this turned out magnificent. This one impressed our judges enough that she received a first place ribbon for this quilt. So congratulations, Jean. All right, we're going to walk over to our next quilt. Our next quilt is going to be entry 1001. This is in the applique 75%. It can have pieced work in it. The owner is Mrs. Ava Chota. It's pieced and quilted by Janet Foreman Green. And this throw size applique quilt is a fun, easy project that's perfect for getting cozy on a chilly night. Each square on there has a cat of a different pattern. The cat is just adorable. Ava's a very young little girl. It's my understanding this is a surprise gift for Ava, and Ava doesn't even know she has it yet, so I hope she's not watching. Then we've got this border that I don't know if you can see. The border at the top and the sides and the bottom is small kitty cats playing with yarn. So the border on this certainly goes with the theme of this quilt. And Janet, you did a great job, and I'm sure Ava will be very pleased and appreciate that. All right, our next quilt entry is 1002. This one is titled Fishy, 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 and this entry was able to win second place. Connie Snetson is the owner. It's pieced by Connie, and it's quilted by Linda Wilson. And she said she saw this pattern and thought it was cute and wanted to try applique. So this has the little bears all in the corners, and as you can see, when it says fishy, 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 the bears are all trying to catch the fish. The way that Connie has the quilt, the green looks like it's significant to the land, and then the blue, the way that she has the blue coordinated together, appears to be water, and where she's got the fish in it. And down here, this little bear happens to have gotten a catch. He's a little bit luckier than the other three. We're going to move on to quilt entry 1003. This one is called Window View, and if you look at it, there are purple panes on it. It's giving the illusion of a window. There's a kitty cat sitting in each window and two small kittens. Here's a plant that's there sitting in the window as well, getting some sun. And then outdoors you can see there's squirrels, there's birds, there's a sun, there's red birds, there's everything on here, even rain clouds. This was actually owned, pieced, and quilted all by the same person, Norma Silk. Norma, you did a great job. She said the window view is her original design. It is machine applique with a pieced background. And there's even, I didn't even notice, here's a train here, and then there's deer here. So that is really impressive, Norma. All right. Entry number 1004 is called Chickasaw National Recreation Area. This quilt actually received third place in the applique category. It is owned by Mary Wilds. It is pieced and quilted by Mary Wilds. And her story says this quilt is dedicated to the beautiful springs, falls, lakes, and campgrounds in the Chickasaw National Recreation Area located in Sulphur, Oklahoma. It's her favorite place to go and relax and enjoy the beauty of nature that has been kept clean and safe by the Chickasaw Nation. This quilt was a challenge because of the applique figures contain numerous fabric pieces that all had to fit together for this quilt to illustrate the theme. You've got everything from bicycles to campers, golf carts. I like how she's got on here the name of the different recreation areas. She's also got Sulphur, Oklahoma down here at the bottom, and at the very top she has Chickasaw Nation Recreation Area. So Mary, that is a great piece, and somebody would love to display that in the recreation area, I'm sure. All right, now we're going on to our first place winner in the embroidered 75% can have piecework category. It's titled Blossom Beauties, entry 901. This is actually owned by Philip Price. Philip Price came by our office and spoke to the quilt show coordinator. He told her he had made a quilt. He wanted to know what the eligibility requirements would be for entering the quilt, and Philip actually did this pattern himself. The pattern is Blossom Beauties, and he was taught to embroider from his grandmother. His granny only had 9 or 10 of the patterns, and he couldn't find the remaining ones when she passed. And in 2018, he said he was on eBay and found the full set of patterns, so he ordered them and used them as a result. I don't know if you can zoom in, but all of the detail work, these little Blossom Beauties have eyelashes, they have lips, they have earrings. Knowing that he hand stitched this and that each one is threaded together is just magnificent. So Philip won first place, and it's much deserved. All right, congratulations, Philip. We're going to go around the corner here, and we are at entry 902, Mother's Flower Garden. It's embroidered 75% with piecework. This quilt did win second place in the category. And Mary Wiles is the owner, also pieced and quilted this quilt, and she says her mother loved flowers. She knew all the varieties and their names. She painted these flowers on muslin squared, where she found them in her cedar chest after her mother passed away. Every single one is a different flower variety. Mary said she can't paint it all, so she punch needle embroidered them, and she used many colors of variegated threads to give them a more realistic look. And I do have to agree with that. One thing about this is they are very realistic. Even the tulips, you can tell there's 2 or 3 different kinds of red used in that, and it certainly makes it pop. Mary, you did a great job on this, and second place. That is impressive. All right, now we're going to move to probably my favorite category. It is the t-shirt quilts. Everybody says they want a t-shirt quilt. Everybody wants to make a t-shirt quilt. You look at it, you think it's going to be easy, but one thing I have heard from the quilters is because of the cotton fabric is stretchy, it's hard because the t-shirt quilts do give. This t-shirt quilt won first place. It is owned by Janet Foreman Green. It was pieced and quilted by Janet Foreman Green. She said this graffiti-style t-shirt quilt is made of Cherokee National Holiday and other Cherokee t-shirts. The shirts are appliqued on one big piece of fabric the same way graffiti is sprayed on a wall, and no piecing makes the quilt grow faster. What I love about Janet's is, like she said, it's got the graffiti style. You've got a large shirt up there and then a smaller square. She's got some turned sideways, some turned at an angle. Some of these, I've been doing the quilt show with Deborah Harrell for 3 years. So our first quilt show that I did was with the 69th. I recognized it, and then the 70th. And then Janet even rushed and ordered a 71st Cherokee National Holiday shirt that is our theme this year, and was able to get that on her quilt. So it's up to date with the most recent Cherokee National Holiday shirts. So Janet, you did a great job. And first place, I couldn't agree more. All right, our next t-shirt quilt is very neat. It's titled Years at the Fair. It's entry 802, owned by Connie Snelson. Connie pieced this, and she had it quilted by Linda Wilson. The t-shirts are her sister's that she accumulated over the years working at the Tulsa State Fair, and this quilt is for her. I might not should have mentioned that, because now Connie says she will probably get it for Christmas. So Connie, don't let your sister watch this. And I love the border. The border is somewhat of a fireworks, explosion, celebration. The top quilt past the corn dog with the little goat. It's very cute. And I think that you made an amazing quilt and couldn't have pieced it together better. This actually received third place, and in my opinion, this is upcycled on the best use of the Tulsa Fair shirts. Entry number 803 is our second place winner for the t-shirt quilt category, and this is owned by Dan. It was pieced and quilted by Deborah Ebke, and this quilt contains t-shirts from her nephew Dan's years in college and as a practicing attorney for Indian rights. This one has a nice, deep, rich brown earth tone border. And then it also has the shirts. I think that Debbie's selection of the different materials, I think that it really made the quilt pop. It makes it feel that it's, like I said, earth toned. It's very blended well. And then the border inside, each one is a different square. So Deborah put a lot of work into it, and it certainly paid off, and it certainly shows. All right. Our next category is specialty technique. And entry 701 received third place for the specialty technique. This is owned by D. Tillman. D pieced this piece, and it was quilted by Jean Olson. The title of this piece is Let It Snow. So this would certainly be something that you would pull out and hang on the wall around Christmas time. Here's a little Santa gnome. He's adorable. Gingerbread man in the window of his home. We've got reindeer down here, snowmen frolicking in the snow, and at the top it says home and has a little three-dimensional bow. Also a three-dimensional bow here on the presents. So, D, congratulations on this quilt receiving third place. We're going to go to our second place winner now, which is entry 702, Sisters in Spirit. This is also specialty technique. This is owned by Deborah Ebke. It was pieced and quilted by Deborah Epke, and she says Sisters in Spirit was created to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote. Combining the suffrage, flags, and the quilt represents the influence Indians had on early American feminists, a story of friendship and inspiration. So that's here with the Sisters in Spirit. You can see Deborah's got, it's three-dimensional on these stars with the purple and the yellow. And then we've got photos down here, and this is something that a lot of the quilters have started, is where they can have these photos printed on fabric and material. That way it's not a piece of paper, that is actually fabric, and that picture, I can't get over the technology and how clear it can be. So this is a very nice quilt, and Deborah is lucky to have it. Our first place for entry 703, the specialty technique, is titled COVID-19. Deborah Ebke is also the owner of this piece. She pieced it and quilted it herself with help from her friend Barbara. This quilt was pieced in 2021 while the world was isolating because of the COVID pandemic. It was made with hopes of passing through the pandemic with the least amount of suffering and loss as possible. As everybody remembers and knows, a lot of us stayed at home. People that stayed at home and quilted, in my opinion, made the most and best out of their time they stayed home. We have 19 in the black square, and if you look at it from a distance, you can see it says COVID, C-O-V, and a small I and a D. So this quilt, in my opinion, Deborah, you did make the most of your pandemic time, and this is a quilt that we will all certainly remember COVID-19. Now, another quilt that pays homage to COVID-19 is our entry 704. This is also in the specialty technique category. This is owned and pieced and quilted all by Deborah Ebke. She said she pieced it from scraps of fabric of masks she made for family and friends. It also includes scraps from quilts she was sewing during the months of isolation. So there's actually three masks down here on the bottom. And as you remember, when people couldn't get masks, if they had somebody like Deborah that quilted, then they would ask that person to make them a mask, because masks were not optional. You had to have it to go to work. You had to have it to go out. So again, she somewhat upcycled this and made the most out of the quilting and the mask fabric. And this coronavirus, I don't know if you can see, it also has like somewhat of a little net over it. So all of the detail and different textures really makes this quilt pop. All right, now our next category is category 601. The category is titled Mixed Technique. This is owned by Cynthia Dodson. It was pieced by Cynthia and quilted by Cynthia. She says she enjoys nature, and one day she saw a couple of feathers on the ground and thought of this idea to make a quilt. Now this quilt with the feathers is amazing. The feathers actually appear to be moving. You can see them flapping in the wind. The choice of color that Cynthia did was amazing. This is one of the quilts, the way that this quilt is hanging right when you walk into our quilt show, it's one of the first quilts that you see, and I think it definitely sets the tone for the quilt show. So Cynthia, we appreciate your entry, and you did a great job. Second place in the mixed technique category is Janet Foreman's quilt, and it's titled Quarter Log Cabin. Let me move Janet's second place ribbon and read her story. This skill building 1/4 log cabin pattern is fun and fast, a great stash buster to use up a few or a lot of different fabrics. The blocks are arranged in a chevron variation. She said only one of about 10 different possible layouts. So Janet's got this all pieced together. Looking at the quilts when you see it online, again, I'm encouraging everyone to come down because you can't really see, but in the background where they've quilted, there's patterns. This one almost looks like a peacock feather. So the quilting on it, Janet has done herself. Janet travels back home to Tahlequah, Oklahoma every year for the Cherokee National Holiday, and Janet is originally from North Carolina. We have several quilts that have come from several different states. We even have one quilt that we have been lucky enough that the quilt has actually come from England. So it's actually traveled across the ocean just to make it to our quilt show. Entry number 603 is third place in the mixed technique category. It's owned by Peggy Lovell. Peggy pieced and quilted this herself. And this quilt here has 5 people on it. It's got a sunflower shading them, and this is just a very good mustard color. Like I said, I like the earth tones, and this quilt is lovely. So, Peggy, congratulations on your ribbon. All right. And now we're going to walk on down. This is the back of a quilt, so we'll see the front of it at the next row. We're going to go to entry 605. This one is owned by Bonnie Richmond, and it's called Farmer's Girl. This is also the mixed technique category. This is celebrating my love of God's little creations, the birds, the insects, and flowers. What joy they give us, and she said, or at least me. So as you can see, she's got birds here, she's got flowers. I see a butterfly. Bonnie's got all different themes in this, and this piece here is a little bit of a vintage to me. You can see the bee up in the top. We've got little birds here and a little bird nest. But Bonnie did a great job on this. Very spring, very floral, very light. Congratulations, Bonnie. It's a great quilt. All right. Entry number 606 is titled Blossoms of Summer. This is also in the mixed technique category. The owner is Sandy Reynolds. Sandy pieced this herself, and it's quilted by Stitching Memories for You. Blossoms of Summer features the beauty of summer flowers, and not just the flowers, but somewhat similar to Bonnie, Sandy has also included the insects. The bees up at the top. She's got birds, she's got butterflies, she's got dragonflies, even a small little spider over here to the side. So, Sandy, this quilt is amazing, and you pieced it wonderfully. All right, next entry is 607. This is titled Cherokee Life. This is also mixed technique. This is one of my favorites. It's 3-dimensional. You can see where it's got the fringe hanging from their shawls and the ribbon. It's also got dream catchers on it. This is the mixed technique category. It's owned by Sandy Reynolds, pieced by Sandy Reynolds, and quilted by Stitching Memories for You. She said this quilt features 6 examples of the life of the Cherokee. My favorite part on this quilt has to be the headdress. With the feathers, knowing that each one is different color, just like feathers it would be on a real headdress. I think that Sandy nailed this. I also like the cheetah pants on the Indian. All right, this is the piece that I was mentioning had come from England across the ocean to be here. It's entry 608, and it's mixed technique, and it is titled It's in My DNA. As a person whose ethnicity comes from different streams, my identity is rich and complex. She says, I do not fit neatly into anyone's box, but I know who I am. That's owned by Melinda, and Melinda actually pieced and quilted that herself. So I think when Melinda realizes that she's won first place, I think that Melinda will be excited. I'm going to turn this piece around here. This is our Cherokee ribbon skirt, t-shirt, and belt. This is the mixed technique category. This was done by Mary Wiles. It was pieced and quilted by her. She said the beautiful lace on the bottom ruffle inspired her to find fabric and ribbons to match the lace color. The ribbons and silver conches, right here, are sewn on the t-shirt and skirt in the Chickasaw style. The outfit has over 7 yards of fabric and 12 to 15 yards of ribbon. We wear this regalia to dance at our stomp dances. I've woven the belt using 3 different colored cotton yarns of the tribe loom, and the ends are braided and beaded. So, Mary, that is a fantastic piece, and we appreciate you sharing that with us. All right, entry 501 in the machine-pieced, machine-quilted category is another beauty by Janet Foreman Green. It's titled Hopscotch, and as you can see the different squares, it is hopscotched around. Each one is a little flower, and then if you can see on the quilting, They even each quilting is a flower as well. She said this basic 9-patch block is a pattern called Hopscotch from 1980's pattern book. She used 3 jelly roll sets to strip piece the blocks and border. She quilted daisies and meandered the borders and sashes. One of the blocks is not like the others. She challenges you to come down to the quilt show and see if you can find which block is not like the others. So we hope you will come down to the quilt show, and that way you can look at Janet's quilt and try to solve that puzzle that she's given you. All right, we're going to make our way around the corner, and we're now at 502 in the machine piece, machine quilted category, and it's titled Pineapple Picnic. It's also from our friend Janet Foreman. She's the owner. It was pieced by Jana Graves Barton, VT, and Janet herself, and Janet quilted this. Jana is retired and does traditional piecing. She likes to do multiple blocks in her tops, and then Janet will take them and add 2 or 3 more borders and do the machine quilting on her long arm machine. Janet says she couldn't ignore the spring and summer colors, so feathers and daisies dominate the blocks and the borders. So Janet, you and Jana have done a great job, and I really like the way that it turned out. We're going to go on to quilt entry 503. It's titled Little Brother Stars. This is also in the machine piece, machine quilted category. The owner of this quilt is Beth West, who also pieced this quilt, and it was quilted by Sally Hagan of Marmy's Quilting. Little Brother Stars was made for her younger brother from the tubs of fabric scraps that she saved over the last 50 years. She loves the random mix of colors, and they're set off by the black and red fabrics. This quilt is not perfect in matching points, but neither are humans perfect. She enjoyed the foundation, piecing, and process of constructing the blocks. Random and haphazard, just like life. Her brother does not know she's made this quilt, and she's excited to gift it to him soon. So I really like that story, Beth, because it's right. Each quilt is different, and I like how you said it's not perfect. It looks perfect from my point of view and from the naked eye looking at it, but we're all each our own biggest critic. And I like how you said on there, it's just haphazard. The stars are just everywhere, just like life. So this is truly inspiring to all of us, and I'm sure your brother will enjoy it for many years to come. All right. Entry 504 is Machine Piece, Machine Quilted. This one is owned by Twyla Morris. It was pieced by Mildred Taylor, and it was quilted by Cosa. This is titled Morris Medley Lakeside. 4 generations worked together choosing fabrics to make this quilt perfect. Her mom pieced the top and had the quilt machine quilted. She loves it, and Twyla will never forget the time and effort that went into it. It is a quilt made with love and will be in the family for generations to come. All right. So this quilt entry is 505, called Golden Eagle, and it is machine pieced and machine quilted. Patsy Gillespie owns the quilt, and it's pieced and quilted by her as well. She said she had to make it. She loves eagles, and that she designed the rest of the outer part to make it hers. So each point on here is spot on for the eagle's wings. This is a very impressive quilt. It's one of a kind. Patsy did an amazing job. And it just makes a bold statement. And right now, we actually are blessed to have Miss Cherokee here to join us at our quilt show. Miss Cherokee, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Can you say a little something in Cherokee to invite the people down to our quilt show?
Sienna God. Please come down and enjoy these beautiful quilts. They're very pretty.
Do you have a favorite? Have you been through the quilt show and walked the quilts already?
I have not, but I'm already seeing lots of beautiful pieces.
Lots of beautiful pieces, lots of beautiful colors. And will you be at the parade tomorrow morning?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. Join Miss Cherokee at the parade tomorrow morning, and then after the parade, come in and get cool here at the Cherokee National Holiday Quilt Show. Thank you, Mrs. Cherokee. All right. We're going to go on to entry 506, titled Yona. Yona is Bear in Cherokee. This quilt is machine pieced and machine quilted. It is owned by Becky Whitewell. Becky pieced this herself, and it is quilted by Michelle Rosen. She said, my Cherokee Yona with my husband's handprint on the old Yona, I was there. So as you can see, Becky has one single handprint right in the middle, and it's right there on the bear, and that's her husband's handprint. So the things that the quilters can do with the quilts and with the fabric and the material, it just amazes me. All right, we're going to go on to quilt entry 507. This is Cherokee Winter in a Jar. This is machine pieced and machine quilted, also made by Becky Whitewell and pieced by Becky. It's quilted by Michelle Rosen, and she said, what better way to enjoy winter than snowman in a jar? And I have to agree. It's got the adorable 2 little snowmen in the bottom, 1 snowman right here in the middle, and this is definitely a winter wonderland quilt. Becky, I think you did a great job. All right, we're going to go on to entry 508. This one is titled Navajo Code Talkers. This is owned by Peggy Lovell. Peggy actually pieced and quilted this herself. This is a very earth tone, very deep reds, oranges. This is a very beautiful quilt. Peggy's also paid tribute Crazy Horse. She put the year here, and it's got lots of different patterns. Peggy also has stars down here in the bottom and some 3-dimensional. Peggy's quilt actually contains rocks. So the rocks have holes in them that were naturally there, and Peggy just decided to add that to her quilt, and I think that really made it pop. All right, so we're going to come over here, and we would like to interview our first place winner for the themed entry. Janet, how are you? Great. We are seeing all of your quilts that are here at the quilt show, and the one we're particularly interested in is the themed entry quilt. So you won first place, and the story of your quilt says this poster replica is an applique quilt. The local FedEx crew helped you enlarge and print the photos, which you copied onto fabric for use in the quilt. The pictures of the new Cultural Center, Hastings Medical Center, and 4 residential homes are your interpretation of the Building Our Nation theme. Cherokee Nation takes on large and small projects to help our citizens. So, Janet, I'm impressed with the pictures, how clear they turned out. What is that? What's that called? And is that something you do yourself? Do you order that done?
These pictures can be copied on an inkjet printer onto fabric sheets.
So the fabric will go through your printer.
It goes through the printer, and you have to have a good high resolution picture that is clear, and you take the picture, copy it to, or lay it on your machine, your copy machine, run it through, and it comes out on fabric. And I used a representation of all of the different things that the Cherokee Nation has been doing for the Cherokee people, the citizens. This is the lobby of Hastings. This is some of the lobby. Down here is the front of the building.
Yes.
Of Hastings.
And the residential homes. I love how you've included the homes because, like you said, we all know about the health system and how we're all blessed through the health system, but also with the homes. Now, I think my favorite part of your quilt, Janet, has to be the QR code.
That's kind of my little joke. It is a working QR code. It's an interactive quilt. If you come up and you scan this quilt with your camera or your device, it will take you to the Cherokee Nation Holiday website. So
That is just
I
amazing.
was being silly.
Oh,
Put that on
oh, I think it's informative just like the rest of it, Janet. It tells a story, and if somebody wants to know something about the Cherokee National Holiday, I had no idea you could put a QR code on there. And to me, that's something that we need to get younger generations into it. Seeing that QR code gets them interested on it, and hopefully we can pass on the quilting skills to them.
It's a process. It's really easy. And the 4 corners have the houses that have been presented by the Cherokee Housing Authority. And the Housing Authority has presented these homes to citizens. So these are projects small and large.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I thought Dan Mink did a wonderful job, and I just took it and did my thing.
Now, Dan Mink is also the one who judged for he's also the one who picked the winner of the theme entry. So like you said, him designing it and having him pick yours as the winner, I think that says it all.
That makes it even more special.
Sure does. Now, Janet, where have you joined us from? Because I told the camera earlier when we were showing one of your quilts that you always come home for Cherokee National Holiday. So where do you call your other home?
My home is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I live about 7 miles from Ross's Landing. And my family came out on the Trail of Tears. And my granddaddy, who's an original enrollee on the Dawes, went back to Chattanooga, and that's where my family is. All of his other brothers and sisters stayed here. So they're all buried here in the Tahlequah Cemetery. He's back in Chattanooga, and I commute.
Well, and we love it because every year that I have been blessed to be working under Deborah at the quilt show, we've seen several of your quilts. So are you working on anything for next year's quilt show?
I've already got ideas.
Okay, I'm excited to see it.
Got ideas, and I've already purchased T-shirts and fabric and several things.
That gets me excited for next year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jean. It's great to see you. All right, we're going to come back over here. Glad we got to see Janet. A lot of our quilters do come down and see their quilts, so we would encourage you to come on down. It looks like piece 509 is titled Butterfly Palace. This is in the machine piece, machine quilted category. This was made by Nancy Turtle. You can see when it's titled Butterfly Palace, each square here is a butterfly pattern. Some big, some small, all different pieces, but the way that she's got this coordinated together, to me, the layout is fantastic. And then the border is all different butterflies, which ties all the different colors together. Nancy did a great job piecing this, and it was quilted by Ina Crittenden. All right, we're going to come on to entry 510. This one is entitled Turtle Dance. It's also by Nancy Turtle, and as you can see, each square in the middle does have a turtle, and then the border also has turtles. They have a very native pattern to them. This quilt, Nancy has taken the colors from the border and coordinated it, and the turquoise, the dark turquoise to me on this quilt really makes it pop. Nancy owns this piece. She also pieced it, and it was also quilted by Ina Crittenden. So you girls have done a great job once again. All right. Entry number 511 in the machine piece machine quilted is owned by Linda Hogner. Linda also pieced and quilted this piece herself. She calls this her challenge quilt. This was a new pattern for her to do, and it was a challenge not to cut off the tips. And she said it was a fun quilt to make. Anybody who's a lover of turquoise like I am would love this quilt. Love the black against the turquoise. I really, really enjoy this quilt. All right. We're going to go to entry 512. It is titled Churn-Delight. It is machine pieced and machine quilted. The owner is also Linda Hogner, and Linda pieced and quilted this quilt herself. She said she just saw the pattern and she thought that she would try it. So I like how if you look closely at the quilting, it's a little bit of half circle, and they just continue on and on and on. All right, we're going to continue to entry 513. My Challenge Churn Dash. Machine pieced, machine quilted. As you can see with the churn, it's similar, and this quilt is owned by Lula Mae McClung. Lula also pieced it, and it was quilted by Linda Hogner. She said this first quilt, her first quilt to piece together, it was quite a challenge, but she's very pleased with the results. It's got a lot of lilac, it's got a lot of lavender, several different colors of turquoise. The flowers inside are turquoise, a couple of different colors of turquoise here with the pattern and with the solid. We're going to go to, this one is a little bit of a unique entry. Entry 514 titled Rainbow Chroma. This is machine pieced and machine quilted. It is owned by Lee Workman, and she pieced this herself, and it's quilted by Leanne Burgess. Excuse me. It's a circle quilt that is traditionally pieced, and she said this was really fun to make. This quilt entry is 515. It is titled Rise Up. The owner is Donna Belt. It is pieced by Donna and quilted by Donna. And the story on her quilt is remembering her ancestors and continuing to rise up. This has somewhat of an optical illusion. It looks like with the dark contrast against the white, it does seem to be rising up. So I think Donna did a great job. Lots of earth tones, lots of rust colored, clay colored. It pays homage to our ancestry. This is the first place ribbon winner for machine pieced and machine quilted. It is entry 516 titled Starburst. The owner is Donna Belt, and it was pieced and quilted by Donna Belt. It's very colorful. I heard some of the judges talking about that Donna's tips were spot on with her quilt, and this quilt is Very, like I said, colorful. Even over here on the border, the triangle is not one solid piece. She's taken two separate pieces. And like I said, the judges were complimenting on how all of her angles and points were spot on. All right, entry number 517 is titled Log Cabin Trail. This is also the machine pieced to machine quilted category. The owner of this quilt is also Donna Belt, and she pieced and quilted this herself. This one reminds me of very fall colors. This would certainly get you in the mood for fall. It's got some patterns that have some leaves on it with the mustard and the orange. Like I said, I think every woman can look at this and know that this is a fall quilt. Donna, this is certainly a beautiful quilt, and we thank you for entering into our quilt show. All right, this is entry 518. I like the title of it. It's called Grape Dumplings. This is machine pieced, machine quilted. The owner is Stephanie Gilbert, and this was pieced by Stephanie Gilbert. She says, we Cherokee love great dumplings, and she wanted to make a quilt that reflects that love. And she said the quilt pattern is Mirror, Mirror, a Donna Jordan design. So if anybody's interested in making this themselves and they're a quilter, just look for Mirror, Mirror, Donna Jordan design. Stephanie, cute name, cute quilt. All right, we're going to go to 519. This is a very fun quilt. This was pieced and quilted by Michelle Newton. The owner is Case and Parnell. Machine pieced, machine quilted. The title of the quilt is Play Ball. So on this quilt, Michelle says that this quilt was made for her nephew, and she said, can you tell that he loves green? She said she thinks they hunted every fabric shop between Tahlequah and Missouri to find all of this green. Well, I'm sure it was a very much task, but Michelle, it certainly paid off, and it was certainly worth it. All right, and quilt show entry 520 is called Glory in Scraps. Machine pieced, machine quilted. Owner is Connie Snelson, and it was pieced by Connie Snelson, and this piece was quilted by Jean Noak. She said she made this throw to use up some scraps that she had in reds and blues. She saw the pattern, so she did it, and she said it does have a lot of history, and it does. It's very Americana. As you can see, she's got the stars and stripes in the corner, and then she's got the red and white stripes. So like I said, this is very Americana, very 4th of July, and even the quilting in the background, as you can see, it's star quilting. So these quilters don't leave any detail unnoticed. Even though we may not notice it, they notice it. All right, and entry 521 is going to tug at the heartstrings of one of my friends, Laura. It is titled Otis. It's machine pieced and machine quilted. Connie Snelson owns this piece, and she pieced it herself, and it was quilted by her friend Jean. She said her sister has a black cat with gold eyes named Otis, so she named this quilt after him, plus Halloween is one of her favorite holidays. And I have seen some people coming in, and they'll take a picture of this one. This is one of the quilts that they definitely want to show people, and everybody knows somebody that they know that loves Halloween and loves cats. Thank you, Connie. All right, entry 522 is called Friendship Star. This is machine pieced and machine quilted. The owner is Bailey Richmond, and it was pieced and quilted by Bonnie Richmond. She felt the way the sashing of the patterns forms the star rather than blocks was interesting. She said it was easy and fun to make. So for Bonnie to say easy, I'm going to say quilting would be anything but easy. This is very bright. Bailey's lucky to be the owner of this. I don't know if she realizes she's the owner. I think that Bonnie gifts a lot of her quilts to people, and I know that her friends and family are blessed by that. All right, quilt entry 523. This is Warrior Spirit. This is machine pieced and machine quilted. The owner is Adam Richmond, pieced by Bonnie Richmond and quilted by Bonnie as well. That's what I mean about I think she blesses a lot of her friends and family with the quilts. And she said, we must know where we come from, our heritage, history, and culture to find our path to the future. She designed this especially for her nephew, a warrior. I like how the prints up here are bear prints, and then it's got arrows on it. It's got feathers. This is truly a native quilt, and Adam is very blessed to have it. All right, entry 520 War is called Protector. This one is also machine pieced and machine quilted by Bonnie Richmond. She's also the owner. She says bears are symbols of wisdom, often featured as guardians and healers in native legends. A warrior possessing bear medicine will stand for what is good and right. A bear claw might be worn to protect or offer strength. The claws are also included in medicine pouches for bringing healing power. This quilt is made with love and hope of healing for a family in mind. So I love how these paws, it's bear paws that are back to back. If you can zoom in on it, each bear paw has a coordinating color with it, the way of the layout, the border, even the stitching, like I said, on the quilting. Bonnie did an amazing job on this quilt. This quilt could be for any man or woman, and as she mentioned, she made this with healing for a family in mind. So thank you for that, Bonnie. Quilt entry 525 is called Stonehenge. This is also in the machine piece, machine quilted category. The owner is Caleb Whitekiller. This quilt was also pieced and quilted by Bonnie Richmond. She says she wanted a challenge. Well, I believe with all the tiny squares and triangles and all the different points to match up, she certainly found it. Bonnie said she wanted it to look like it sprang from earth. She said, did she do a good job in your opinion? What do you think? I think she nailed it. I think all of the earth tones, even the quilting here on the sides, all looks to be very much from the earth. It does look like it sprang from the earth. Yep. I think you did great, Bonnie, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. Entry 526 is called Burnt Water. This is also a very native quilt. The colors are magnificent. Love the dark red clay color, so to speak. This is owned by Carolyn Murdoch. Carolyn pieced and quilted this herself. She said she's always been intrigued with Southwest designs and colors, so she decided to make it this one. And she said this quilt itself has over 400 pieces in it. We can come across the aisle over here to entry 527. This quilt is titled Delectable Mountain. It is machine pieced and machine quilted. Carolyn Murdoch, again, is the owner and pieced and quilted this herself. She said she just always liked the pattern and what she could do with this. And it's got several different colors. They get lighter as they come in. And then in the very center, Carolyn has a wolf. And to me, that just looks fantastic. It makes the whole quilt pop. And we thank you for sharing, Carolyn. Entry 528 is called Lattice in White. And just like it sounds, it's got little lattice pieces in white. This was machine pieced and machine quilted. Jean Olson is the owner, and she pieced and quilted this herself. And she said she likes the contrast between the lattice and the rest of the quilt. And like down here on the bottom, each little strip is a different piece of fabric. I think when people look at this at first, they just think, oh, okay, that's a piece of material and the pattern on it. No, none of this is pattern. Each little piece is all quilted together. And like I said, Jean, you did a fantastic job. Lattice in white. All right. This next quilt, this is the back, so we're going to kind of skip this part and we're going to go to the next quilt. So the quilt that previously hung here is one of our prestigious awards on the stage. Entry 530 is Log Cabin Maze. We're still in the machine piece, machine quilted category. This is owned by Twyla Whitekiller. And this one, if you like red and Christmas time, you'll love this quilt. I don't know if you can see, some of the material here is smaller snowmen. Some of it is snowflakes. And like I said, with the red and white, it certainly gives you the Christmas spirit. They didn't even leave out on the border. It's bordered with candy canes. And the very trim is peppermint candies. So I think this quilt here is sweet enough to give you a toothache. Thank you, ladies. And quilt entry 531 is Churn Dash. This quilt here received third place ribbon in the machine piece, machine quilted. Leslie is the owner. Jean is who quilted it, and it says the Churn Dash is a very old 9-patch block. It originated between 1800 and 1849, and Leslie and Jean even used reproduction of the 1800 fabric to give it that nostalgia feel. And I feel like this is something, even though it's a new quilt, that it gives you a nostalgic feeling where you feel like this may have been something that you found in your grandma's cedar chest or you found a hidden treasure. Entry 530 is called Prairie Dreams. It is owned by Pamela Cowart, who pieced this herself, and it was quilted by Danny White. She said this is a Pat Sloan pattern of Oh My Stars, and she used Kansas Trouble fabrics. So you can see the mustard gold color stars here. And this, and in the background, the stitching and the quilting on this is just magnificent. It's not peacock, but it's got several swirls, almost somewhat of a feather feel. And the flow and coordination of the fabrics, because all these quilters have to pick these fabrics out themselves. So like I said, all the quilts, when I talk about coordination, it's picking that. They don't get a pattern for that. So these ladies have really done a great job, and gentlemen. Entry 533 is True Blue Churn Dash. This is machine pieced and machine quilted, owned and pieced by Pamela Coward herself and quilted by Danny White. The churn dash is an old pattern. She said it's one of her favorites, and the fabric is a layer cake feed sacks. And she said True Blue by Lindsay McCrae. So this is just, it reminds me of an old kitchen. And like I said, it just kind of takes me back to simpler times, the blue and white. Everybody likes that. And it's certainly a beautiful quilt. We're going to come around the aisle. We're going to start on a new aisle. And this aisle starts with entry 534, Fall Harvest. This definitely gives you the fall vibes with the scarecrow. Thresha Einman is the owner. She also pieced it with Bonnie Richmond, and Bonnie quilted it. This was a panel where borders were added to enhance the design, almost finished the borders, and broke her arm. So the quilt was completed for her by her sister Bonnie Richmond. So her sister helped her in a bind, and Thresha, we sure hope that your arm is better now, and we hope that you're getting plenty of quilts done for next year. And this one is fantastic, and we've enjoyed it this year. We're going to move on to entry 535, which is Pop Art Flowers. This is machine pieced and machine quilted by Deborah Ebke. Deborah also pieced this piece, and it was quilted by her friend Barbara. Deborah found a floral fabric which she cut up and combined with some complementary fabrics to create this square withing a square quilt. So to me, this one very much certainly pops. It's very much almost a watercolor, the way that everything blends together. And then the way that Barb even quilted around each petal here actually makes the flowers pop and makes them look very real, very much like a photograph. All right, entry 536 is titled Red and White Carpenter Square. It's machine pieced and machine quilted, also owned by Deborah Ebke and pieced by Deborah herself, and it was quilted by Haley. Deborah, I do have to let you know that the chief did walk by this quilt, and he mentioned that it's stunning and that it just pops. And I'm going to say that he has great taste, because I couldn't agree more. The red against the white is very much contrast, and even the pattern where it starts out, you can see the geometric shapes and designs. This was pieced magnificent, and Deborah, I do have to say that you are quite talented. All right. We are going to go on to 537, which is Patriotic Square within a square. And just as the title says, you can see one big square, and then you see smaller squares in it. And just when you think you see a square, well, now there's another square in it. This is machine pieced and machine quilted. The owner, Deborah likes to keep us guessing, and I love that. This is pieced and quilted by Deborah, but the owner says to be determined. So somebody in her family may be lucky enough to get this quilt. This, Deborah said, she is a volunteer with the National Quilts of Valor Foundation. She sews monthly with members of a group, and the mission of Quilts Valor is to cover service members and veterans touched by war with comforting and healing quilts of valor. That's very commendable, and I do have to say that's beautiful just to hear. Even on the border, it has fireworks, and this quilt certainly pops. And I think anybody or whoever you determine, Deborah, should get this will be lucky. Fisherman's Dream, entry 538, is machine pieced and machine quilted, owned by Barbara Mooney. Barbara pieced and quilted this herself. Fisherman's Dream is a panel of fish prints surrounded by bubbles. So she's referring to the quilting, and like we mentioned earlier, all the quilting itself is just a bunch of circles, so it looks like bubbles, and it gives that illusion here on the quilt. Barbara said the Fisherman's Dream is a panel of fish prints surrounded by bubbles, and the throw size is perfect for dreaming of the big catch. I couldn't agree more, Barbara. Thank you for your entry. All right, entry 539 is Winter Star. This is owned by Tyler. It's pieced by Thresha Einman, quilted by Bonnie Richmond. This quilt was a class quilt and made for her grandson Tyler. The fabric was pulled from her stash of fabrics, and the border was her first attempt at making curves. So here she has pieced these curves together, and I know sewing the curve and also quilting it can be a challenge, but I'm going to say that you and Bonnie nailed this. I love the colors of it. I know that Tyler loves it, and he's proud to have it. Congratulations, Tyler. All right, and in this next entry, the last one on our aisle, is entry 540, and it is titled Bow Tie, I love this quilt. It looks like a million different bow ties, and it makes me think of all the bow ties that you could see, that different patterns, different colors. This was pieced and quilted by Bonnie, and this quilt was gifted to Thresha as a Christmas gift from her sister Bonnie Richmond in 2002. She said she loves scrappy quilts, and Bonnie made 3 of these for family members. So Bonnie was quite busy that year for Christmas. Now we have our last aisle. We can walk over here. And our last aisle over here at the quilt show is a little short aisle. And the last aisle here, we're going to start with quilt entry 541. It's called Scrappy Delight, machine piece, machine quilted. Anna Crittenden is the owner, and she also pieced and quilted this herself. I love the purple border. It's ombre, several different colors of purple on it. I also love the pinks. The hot pink especially makes this pop. The peach colors, the green, it all coordinates together so much. Scrappy Delight, this quilt doesn't have a story with it, but I'm assuming what Anna meant by that is that she just used scraps of material. And when that old saying, one man's trash is another person's treasure, this is certainly a treasure, Anna. We're going to move on to 542, which is boho heart. I did hear one of the judges say that if she had a guilty pleasure and could pick one quilt out to take home just to be her own, she would pick the boho heart. She said it's so unique. This is owned by Norma Silk. It's pieced by Norma Silk, and it was quilted by her friend Tawana Mahone. And she said, I made a boho heart as a Valentine quilt from a pattern. She said she changed some blocks from the original design to add her own creative touch. And I'm going to say, Norma, that you have nailed it. And like I said, I wanted to let you know that one of the judges was bragging if she could take one home, this would be her choice. All right, entry 543 is Delectable Mountain. This is machine pieced, machine quilted. The owner is Debbie Dunn. It is pieced by Debbie Dunn and it is quilted by Bonnie Richmond. This was actually a class project done in a medallion style. So I love how the lighter purples go to the darker purple and then the navy. All of this goes together beautifully. I love the spotted and the dotted fabric. The navy trim to me just seems to pop against the navy in the middle and then the navy in the center. So Debbie and Bonnie, I think y'all did a great job picking out colors, coordinating it, and quilting and piecing it as well. We're going to go down here around the corner. This will be our last leg. And this is entry 545 called Basket of Blooms. It is machine pieced and machine quilted. The owner is Debbie Dunn, pieced by Debbie Dunn, and it's quilted by Bonnie Richmond. It is a class project, and she said it was the first time where she made this pattern. And again, like we've said before, the points are on point. They all match up together. They all meet in the middle. So Debbie piecing this together, I know it took lots of hours, lots of patience, and I'm going to tell you that it certainly paid off. It was your first time doing the pattern. It's amazing because, from my opinion, you nailed it. All right, and then we've got entry 546 titled The Birds. This is machine piece, machine quilted. It's owned by Donnie Craig. Donnie also pieced and quilted it. So this one, like I said, is one of those that when you look at the squares, here's the bird. The solid squares also have intricate quilting in them where you can see that is a piece of art just in itself. So picking out the different patterns you're going to do on the quilting, the rust red clay color background really makes this pop. And again, this is somewhat of a fall color and we're all getting in the mood for fall. The last quilt that we're going to look at today for our entry is 548 titled Cherokee Woman. It is machine pieced, machine quilted. The owner is Shelby Glass. It is pieced by Betty Kirk. It is quilted by Betty Kirk, and she said this reminds me of a Cherokee woman at a powwow with her skirt and shawl on. And as you see, each one of the squares does have a Cherokee woman in it. She has her skirt on, she has her shawl on, and each one has hair. And I don't know if you can see, the hair is three-dimensional. So they have made that hair themselves, and then it has where it would be sticking out of their braids at the end. And last year on our quilt show, I believe we had 72 quilts. I could ask Deborah for sure, but this year I know we had 106 quilts. So our quilt show is growing every year. Our quilt show is currently located in the Chota Conference Center in the Cherokee Casino here in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. While you can see it virtually, we do ask you to come out and see us in person. We have door prizes that we're giving away in person. We also have, like I said, you can see the quilts, you can see the prestige awards that we have, and you can just gather and visit with family and friends and fellowship here at the Quilt Show. We hope to see you soon, and we hope that you'll look online to see what our hours are, the website at cherokee.org, and look for Cherokee National Holiday. There's not a Cherokee word for goodbye, so until we meet again, Wado.